Everything that I read there was something that he went through. Our Savior gets it. Our Savior understands from personal, first-hand experience. And the reality is, no matter how much I suffer in this world, it's not going to compare to the level of suffering that Jesus Christ went to. And also, God has given us an example through Jesus Christ of how we should handle these types of situations. One thing I've noticed about Jesus Christ is he was never a victim, right? He was always a willing sacrifice. And because of what he did for us, when he died on the cross for us, he's given us a freedom. And that freedom is, we no longer belong to this world. This is no longer my home. This is no longer my kingdom. My kingdom was with God now. So that's given me a very cool freedom that I've just kind of realized here lately. And that is, I don't have to hold on to my rights here on earth anymore. I don't have to fight, kick, and scream to be right, to have people always say true things about me. I just don't have to, because this isn't my home. And it's through that freedom that every once in a while I get it right and I approach God in the third way. All right? And that is leaning into God's grace. When things get difficult, leaning into God's grace. Now, I got a little, and Stephen's going to be happy because I have my first prop. But this is how I want to explain this. I just bought these videos 2 weeks ago. It's called the Insanity series, right? And you guys who've ever done the P90X series, this is the series after that. Supposedly, it's the most difficult series that's ever been put on DVD, so of course I had to try it. And near as I can tell, they're right. This is the most difficult series that's ever been put on DVDs. Now, I've done this for 2 weeks now, and the first week that I did this, literally, and I'm embarrassed to say this, but I couldn't even make it through the warm-ups, right? There's a 9-minute warm-up in this thing, and I would just get to the end of it and just be like, I don't even know how I'm going to do the video, but somehow I would make it through the video, and I would get to the end of it, and I would just be kind of curled up in a fetal position on the hardwood floors, just sweat all around me on the floors, and my wife would say, that looks pretty horrible, you know, usual supportive, that looked pretty horrible, and I'd say, I can't talk right now because I just can't breathe. And I would just lay there and I would think, this hurts so bad. This is just so uncomfortable. This hurts so bad. And I made it through the first week. The second week, things started to get a little bit easier. And also on the second week, you have to take a fitness test. And you kind of gauge it against the fitness test that you took when you first started. And as it turned out, my results were twice as good as they were when I first started. And then, the ultimate. I had my shirt off in the bathroom, and my wife goes, hey, I can start to see some results here, all right? Things are starting to change. So now, you better believe, in the mornings, I'm down here working these videos as hard as I can. But the point I'm trying to make here is, we understand in the physical world that in order for us to grow and in order for us to be stretched, it's going to cause us a little pain. Not only do we understand that, we seek it out. We buy videos to do that to ourselves. We go out and we pay personal trainers to do that to ourselves. We spend hours a week out running on the roads to do that to ourselves. Why do we do it? Because we know that the end results are worth it. And what I would say to you, what I'm learning is, in your spiritual walk with God, the same holds true. Anytime that you're being stretched, anytime that you're growing, it's going to hurt a little bit. And it's going to be uncomfortable. We make that connection in the physical world, but we do not make that connection in the spiritual world. And the reason I know that's true is, when's the last time one of you guys went into work and said, you know what, I want to give somebody else my job? Because I know that being unemployed is really going to stretch me and grow me closer to God. When's the last time one of us went out and did that? I've never done it. When's the last time one of us went to our checking account and said, I'm going to take out all my money, all my savings, everything, and just give it away? Because I know that I'm going to be stretched, and it's going to push, and it's going to hurt, but I know that it's going to be worth it. Because I know that I'm going to grow towards God. We don't seek that out in the spiritual world. We try and keep that from happening in our spiritual world. We get mad at God if that happens in the spiritual world. But the truth is, in the same way, in our spiritual world, whenever we're being stretched, whenever we're being forced to grow, it's worth it. I want to read a verse to you, and this is Paul in 2 Corinthians. And this is really where he's just giving kind of an introduction here to the church of Corinth. And what he says is, and he just starts out and he just wants to let them know about how things were going on their trip that they had to Asia. He says, "We think you ought to know, dear brothers and sisters, about the trouble we went through in the province of Asia. We were crushed and overwhelmed beyond our ability to endure, and we thought we would never live through it. In fact, we expected to die. But as a result, we stopped relying on ourselves and learned to rely only on God, who raises the dead. And he did rescue us from mortal danger, and he will rescue us again. We have placed our confidence in him, and he will continue to rescue us." So what Paul's saying there, I think, is, look, guys, circumstances got pretty bad. In fact, circumstances got so bad that we pretty much just decided we were going to die. We weren't going to make it. But it was in their helplessness, and it was in that area where they were being stretched and completely uncomfortable, that they learned a whole new thing about God. Can you imagine for a second what would happen if Paul had gotten distracted? If Paul had said, "Let's just do a bunch of little things here and keep busy so that maybe these things won't happen. Maybe we won't suffer anymore." Can you imagine if Paul had gotten disobedient and said, "Let's start fudging. Let's start breaking the rules here a little bit. Let's start bending God's rules a little bit." He would have totally missed out on meeting a God who raises the dead and who he knows in the future is going to always rescue him. And I think the same holds true for us. So as I've been going through this, guys, the thing that's really stuck out to me, and the thing that I'm really learning is, when I'm talking about my appropriate response to God, the reality is, and from time to time I'm going to need you guys to remind me of this, and from time to time we're going to have to remind each other of this. Our response to God never changes. It doesn't matter what your circumstances are. And I hope this makes sense. When I get a new job, or when things go well in my life, that's not why I worship God. I give thanks to God for that, but that's not why I worship God. When things go wrong in my life, and things are not going the way that I want them to, that's not a reason for me to not worship God. That's a reason for me to keep my face towards God and ask him to give me the grace that he's promised me so I can get through that situation. The reason that I worship God, and the reason I believe we all worship God, is not for what we perceive that he is or is not doing in our lives. It's for what he's already done. It's for what he did on the cross. Even if God never showed up again in our lives, it wouldn't matter. He would still be worthy of our worship because of what he's already done. So I worship him for that, and I also worship him for who he is. For his glory, for his mercy, for his compassion, for his love. And neither one of those things ever change, regardless of what my circumstances are here on earth. All right? Questions for the night. Number one, name an area or relationship in your life where you could currently use God's grace. This can be a situation that you're in, a person that you have to interact with on a daily basis, someone in your family, someone at your job, or just a situation in general. And when I say that you could currently use God's grace, I mean what he has promised us, which is the ability to make it through this, the ability to give us the strength to make it through this. How does this situation, this relationship, affect your relationship with God? For example, like I talked about, the way that I respond. Does it distract you? Does it ever cause you to sin, act out in a certain way? Or does it draw you closer to him? Because you're constantly seeking God's face on this. You're constantly seeking God's grace on this, so that you're constantly orienting yourself towards God. And then the third question, sometimes spiritual growth and being stretched can be uncomfortable. What changes through the situations that we've been talking about do you see God making in you or asking of you? All right? As always, leave the religious junk in the parking lot. Keep it real. 1, 2, 3, go.